Welcome to the Bariatric Nutrition Coach podcast, where we empower you with weight loss surgery, nutrition knowledge, mindset advice, and inspiration so you succeed in your weight and health journey. I'm your host, Jane Stoltz, and I am a bariatric dietitian who has helped over 1,300 people on their weight loss surgery journeys. I'm also a solo mum, lover of long walks while listening to podcasts, partial to a glass of wine, and the ocean is my happy place. Join me as I dive deep into bariatric nutrition and lifestyle topics and deliver them to you in bite-sized, palatable episodes every Monday. Now let's go. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Bariatric Nutrition Coach podcast. And the topic that I'm talking about this week is such a common area that people struggle with after having bariatric surgery, and it links to one of people's biggest fears after having weight loss surgery, and that is weight regain. So today I'm going to dive into grazing and snacking after having surgery, the whys. Why do I feel like it is such a common habit that people struggle with, and why it's so important to work on improving and changing this habit, and give you 3 tips to start working on your grazing and snacking if it's something that you struggle with. So for people that don't know me very well, my name is Jane Stoltz. I'm a registered dietitian. I specialise in the area of bariatrics, and I work with clients before surgery and every stage after surgery. And also I work solely online, and I have clients all over the world. And it's a wonderful career for me. I love working with people in the area of bariatrics, brave people that decide to take their health journey in their own hands and have surgery. And I'm really passionate about people getting the education and support that they want and need, no matter where they live in the world and what stage of their journey that they're at. So I specialise solely in this area, and I want to talk about all about grazing and snacking and my approach, and we're going to dive right into it. But before we dive into it, I want to define the term snacking, and possibly is because, or some not confusion around the word snacking, but I think it's how it's used. And I want to talk about how I'm using the word snacking. So we say, well, in Australia, we'll say have a snack, and that means really a small meal. And after bariatric surgery, you need to eat regular intervals, and some might be bigger meals and some might be small meals. So I might even say sometimes 3 meals and 2 snacks, or you could say 3 meals. When I'm talking about grazing and snacking in this context, I'm talking about that picking a little bit here, a little bit there, meals going too long, just kind of grabbing. It's not intentional eating, it's mindless eating. It's small bits often, and that's the behaviour that we're talking about. So grazing, snacking, I put them together. I just wanted to be really clear about how I'm using the word snacking, because I know people listen to my podcast of the world, and I don't want things to get lost in translation. So grazing and snacking. Now, I have a couple of, not theories, but a couple of thoughts about why grazing and snacking is such a big challenge for people after having weight loss surgery. And I'm going to talk through the whys, because it's really great to understand more about maybe what's leading to your eating habits, your eating behaviours. And we're going to talk more about that. But let me start by talking about some of the reasons why I think it comes up as such a big habit that needs attention after weight loss surgery. The first reason is that many people prior to having weight loss surgery, and this is from my experience of working with so many people over the years and talking to them at that pre-surgery point about their eating habits. And many people have eaten in an eating habit way, want of a better phrase, pre-surgery, that is irregular eating habits. So eating, going a long time without eating, and then kind of overeating in the evening or catching up later in the day, grabbing and going, I call it grab and go food, not meal prepping, not planning. So that's a very common eating pattern that people follow pre-surgery. So that kind of irregular eating pattern. So that is one thing that people can bring in to their weight loss surgery journey. Some people, you might listen to this and say, no, Jane, I'm really regular. I've always been a regular eater and really scheduled. Great. And that's wonderful because that means that regular eating post-surgery is going to be a bit easier for you. But for many people, it's a really big change to get those regular meals in and eat regularly, especially also in the early days when you don't have that appetite driving you. Or you could have a job, a career, and life that makes it really challenging. So the years of skipping meals and eating irregularly kind of comes into that post weight loss surgery journey, and that will lead to grazing and snacking. Because when you don't have like a regular eating schedule, you're going to get to a point you say you need something small, you need something a little bit to tide you over, and then you get to the next meal and you're not quite as hungry, you don't eat as much, and then it doesn't sustain you for as long and you need something small, and that grazing snacking pattern continues. So that's one reason. The second reason I see people falling into this in the early days after weight loss surgery is that we ask you to aim for a protein goals post-surgery, and you enter your weight loss surgery journey so determined and focused. And that's a wonderful approach. And we ask you to get your protein. And I've heard it so many times over the years of wanting to eat a certain amount of food because it's got a certain amount of protein, and sitting on that meal, so to speak, eating it slowly, having breaks, and eating over a long period of time. And what it does is, and I kind of mentioned it before, but then it kind of leads into that next meal time. You don't have that same appetite, so you only eat a little bit, and then you doesn't sustain you for as long, and you need to eat a bit more again. And that eating pattern doesn't get established, and you fall into that snacking kind of picking behavior. So that's another thing. Even from week 3, when I'm working with clients at that stage, we are getting a regular eating schedule in place. And I'm talking about regular meals, but also limiting your meals, eating time for up to 30 minutes. We need to have distinct meals, then allows you a gap between the meals where you can sip. If you don't, if you fall into a grazing pattern in that early days, it will stop you from, it makes it harder to reach your fluid goals because you don't have those distinct gaps in between your eating, okay? And another reason snacking and grazing can be there is that emotional eating component. And we all use food and all have some emotional eating. We all eat for emotional reasons, but some people more than others. And if that component of your triggers to eat is not worked on and not dealt with, then when emotions come up and you can eat a bit more post-surgery, that's where the snacking and grazing can come back as well. So there's a range of things. You might want to reflect on when I'm talking about these things and see what, if your snacking and grazing is a challenge for you, what do you think leads to it? What do you think kind of triggers you into that pattern then? Because it's a really important thing to manage, okay? And that is where I start when I'm working with somebody, especially if they come to me with this behavior. We are really getting an eating scheduling. I'm going to go through some tips. So it's a key struggle, but also it's a key area to manage because it is really associated with weight regain as a behavior. And if we even step earlier than that in the bariatric journey, if snacking and grazing comes in during your weight loss phase, it can slow down and stop weight loss because grazing and snacking, it leads to extra energy coming into your diet. Regular meals help you regulate your appetite. When we graze and snack, we actually can get more food in over the day, and so more energy comes in. And often when people are grazing and snacking, they aren't choosing high protein foods generally. Generally, it's more of the high carbohydrate, high fat foods. So it's really important to be aware of this behavior, and it's really great to manage it and get support if you need managing it, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk through 3 steps that you can do if you are noticing you're grazing and snacking after your weight loss surgery and you want to start changing, you want to start working on that habit. And I talk a lot about this way of approaching behavior change. Often, and this comes from the dieting, kind of years of dieting, when you are doing a behavior that you don't want to be doing, we will often think, I've got to stop doing that. I've got to stop doing that. But actually, a more positive way and more powerful way of approaching this challenge is actually think, what am I going to start doing? And when I start doing other behaviors, that leads to the behavior that I don't want diminishing and being managed. And it's a lot more of a powerful and positive way of approaching this behavior change. So I'm going to go through 3 steps that you can do, 1, 2, 3, to manage and work on your grazing and snacking if that's there for you in your weight loss surgery journey. You may be listening to this pre-surgery and you can do it. You can do these steps because it's building awareness and it's building the tools, I call them the tools in your toolkit. And that's very much my approach when I'm working with clients. It's not piece of paper, follow this, just kind of cookie cutter, follow. It's about learning strategies that they will have for the rest of their life and knowing how to manage certain behaviors and know how to bring themselves back on track if they drift off. Because when we are looking at this behavior change, it's not like, okay, I manage my snacking and grazing, it's never going to come back. You're human. You're not perfect, and old habits die hard. So we are going to see the journey as building your skill set and the tools in your toolbox. So let's talk about steps now. So step 1 is, and I've started talking about this a little bit, but is really observe what your behavior is. And it can be uncomfortable. Who wants to be looking at what they don't want to do? Who wants to be focusing on the things that they're doing that they don't want to be doing? It's uncomfortable. Also, when we start looking at the things that we're doing that we don't want to be doing, they seem bigger in your face and it can be a lot. I'm very passionate about journaling or just writing things down. Observation is wonderful. And I always talk about observation with compassion. It is going, okay, this is what I'm doing. And let me ask myself, why am I doing that? When did I start doing this? And sometimes people's patterns and triggers and eating habits started in childhood. Sometimes there were certain things that happened during life and change of job or something that led to that eating pattern or eating habit starting. So looking at your patterns and your triggers with compassion and just really observing what's going on and looking and asking yourself, why do I do that? What am I looking for? I love the term, what am I hungry for if it's not food? Because really, often people can stop, check in. Actually, I'm not physically hungry. What else are you hungry for? And it's a lovely question to ask yourself. And I call them that when you're looking at your patterns and those times of the day where you're more likely to have that grazing and snacking, which is often afternoon onwards, afternoon, after work, after dinner, call that a hotspot. So you get really clear about where are your hotspots, where are you most vulnerable, when is this habit coming up the most? And your triggers, is it more after stressful days, or what are the emotions or what are the things that trigger you to snack and graze more? So that's number 1, it's really awareness. Number 2, and I've alluded to this one as well, but I'm going to talk all about it, it's establishing a regular eating schedule, and I'll explain why. And if you've listened to my other podcasts and things and Instagram, you're going to go, yes, Jane, I've heard all about this, but it's really important. Some people are really scheduled. That's their personality. They love a spreadsheet. I'm one of them. I love spreadsheet. I love ticking boxes. I like schedule. I like routine. I'm not one to miss meals, but I am not the majority. Everyone is different. And many people, go with the flow. And life is so busy, and I get it. And before surgery, you can eat enough to sustain you for hours. You can eat a meal large enough to give you the fuel to keep going for hours. Post-surgery, you can't. You need to eat regularly. So we need to look at what's the best schedule for you with respect to your life, the rhythm of your life, your work, your travel, your family. When are the best times for those meals? How do you remind yourself to eat? How do you get prepared? How do you have great things on hand? And there's so many strategies and ways I help people do this and put this and embed this in their life, not to be like, oh, I'm on the clock and it's I've got to eat now. It's roughly now. It's not exactly the time. Can you be a bit more relaxed on weekends and holidays? Yes, but there are more benefits to eating regularly, even when you're on holiday, than not eating regularly. When we eat regularly, it helps regulate your appetite. It helps reach your protein goal. It helps get to the end of the day and have less hunger and cravings. The research shows, and I'm going to be talking about this in the next step a bit more, when we put a good amount of our protein that early part of the day, we're less likely to have hunger and cravings and snacking later in the day. Okay, so that's really key. When they have done studies, and this is from Australian data, but I think it relates globally, when they've looked at what the average person in Australia, how their spread of protein goes, this is not bariatric, it's just generally. Very little for breakfast, some for lunch, more at dinner. And what we want to do is actually spread it out. And we want to get a good amount at breakfast and a good amount at morning tea or mid-morning, good amount at lunch, and really spread it out, because you're feeding your cells regularly through the day, and it ensures that you get home, walk through the door, and you're not starving. And if you're in that early medium days after surgery, you might say, well, Jane, I'm not starving, I'm never starving, I'm not hungry. I know that, and that is also a top level awareness of sensations. If you haven't had enough to eat during the day, what can be happening at a cellular level is hunger, and can drive people to eat. And they're like, I'm looking for food, but I'm not that hungry, but I eat a bit and then that's enough, but then I go back and I get more. So appetite and hunger and fullness cues change a lot over your bariatric journey. And it's about fueling yourself adequately and comfortably and being aware of that cellular hunger. And I do a lot of work with my clients around that. So eating regularly is really important. Eating regularly also ensures that when you start eating, you're not over hungry and you can eat slowly. And eating slowly is so wonderful because you get to find that spot. You get to identify, and if it's not easy in the beginning, it's a practice to identifying that spot of, I've eaten enough, I'm satisfied. Not full, satisfied. So eating regularly, I bang on about it a lot for a whole lot of reasons. And sometimes, yes, it comes more naturally to people. Their personality and their lifestyle supports it. Other people, there's more work we need to do, but that's okay. And it's not the same for everyone. It can look slightly different for everyone. So step one is observe with compassion and look at your patterns, triggers, and find your hotspots. Step two is finding that regular eating schedule. And step three is what I talked about, and I'm going to go into this more, is ensuring we have a good amount of protein in that early part of the day.
Now tell me, is this you? You have had your bariatric surgery and you're feeling lost, you're lacking support, and you don't know what to eat and when. Or you may have noticed after your surgery, your hunger and cravings have started to return and you are scared you won't reach your goals. You may have had some weight regain and you want to stop the weight regain and lose some more weight. You may be pre-surgery and you want support to be fully prepared for your weight loss surgery journey. If any of these sound like you, then listen up. I have developed my Bariatric Nutrition Bootcamp just for you. My coaching program provides education, coaching and community for people getting ready for their weight loss surgery and at every stage after their surgery. There are 4 key areas that I focus on with my clients in my Bariatric Nutrition Bootcamp. One is the Bariatric Nutrition Basics. You will learn what and how to eat so you feel satisfied, reach your protein and fluid goals, and have less cravings, and know how to manage your hunger in the future. Meal ideas and meal planning. You will learn to plan meals and snacks that you like, so you have great options on hand when it comes time to eat. Also, we focus on mastering weight regain habits, identifying any habits that are stopping you from reaching your goals, and create manageable strategies to get back on the straight and narrow so you can manage your weight for the rest of your life. And also, I focus with my clients in my Bariatric Nutrition Bootcamp on learning to trust your body and food, Start to enjoy your food again by relearning to listen to your body cues so you have less guilt and improve your relationship with food and your body. If you are ready to maximize your weight loss surgery results, feel confident in your journey, and be led with support and expert guidance, then the Bariatric Nutrition Bootcamp is for you. If you would like to know more about my coaching program, check out the link in the show notes.
It really sets up your day well, not only from a fueling perspective. One, we're going to get to the end of the day and feel more comfortable. It takes pressure off eating later in the day, which often people try and make up their eating later in the day. And it often surprises people, but often dinner can be the hardest meal for many people after weight loss surgery for quite a while, because you get to the end of the day and you're exhausted. Just eating feels like a huge chore. And so getting a good amount of protein that early part of the day really sets you up to have less pressure to eat later in the day. And also you feel better. Feeling better is really key, because if you just listen to your hunger and fullness cues in those early to medium days and you don't have you can't register those and you don't feel them top line, you can get to later in the day and feel really crummy. And you can feel crummy, and what that does is, I call it spiraling. When you feel crummy, you don't feel as hungry, you eat less and you can feel crummy. And yes, some people think, oh, I'm eating less after my weight loss surgery, I'm not eating a lot, that's great, that's going to help my weight loss. But actually it does the opposite. Your body says, oh, we're not eating enough. We need to hang on to our adipose tissue, our fat tissue, and you don't feel good, you're losing some muscle because your body needs to use some muscle for protein, you're not eating enough, and you don't lose your adipose tissue. We want to have an adequate protein, we want to keep our muscle and feel your body to relax and lose your adipose tissue. Because we don't store protein in our body, we store fat in our body, and we store carbohydrate in our body. So a good amount of protein in the early part of the day is a key area that really sets people up for success and really helps them manage eating later in the day. And this is super important because most people's snacking and grazing generally lands in that second half of the day. Okay. Can it be in the morning? Yes. And that can be for some people, but I'm just talking generally, it's more in that later part of the day, mid-afternoon. So let me recap the 3 steps that you can work through if you are noticing grazing and snacking being a challenge for you after your weight loss surgery. 1, observe with compassion and ask yourself, what are you hungry for? If you're not physically hungry, you may be physically hungry. What are you hungry for? What are your patterns and your triggers? Where are your hot spots in the day? Number 2 is establish a regular eating schedule. And number 3 is ensuring you put a good amount of your protein in that early part of the day. So this gives you a little bit of insight into the type of work I do with my clients. And if you would like to know more about my coaching and support, please fill in my application form. There is no pressure or obligation to know more about my coaching and support. That's what I do. I get to know people and they get to see if I'm the right person for them in their bariatric journey. So please send me through any questions. If you have them, I would love to hear from you. I really appreciate your support. I've been getting wonderful comments, Instagram and Facebook. And if you do give me a shout out in social media, I will give you a shout out here. So if you share my podcast in your social media and share it, tag me and I'll personally give you a shout out here. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your support. And I really look forward to being back in your ears next week. Bye for now.